Arise, it's a new day. Hear his word, let us pray. The sunrise morning show. A better way to start your day.
It is Monday, the 4th of August, the feast of St. John Vianney. Let's pray together in the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Lord, you emptied yourself that you might fill others with life. Deepen in all pastors a self-sacrificing love for their people. You came not to be served, but to serve. Strengthen those who do works of service against all temptation to pursue personal gain. You gave your life as a ransom for many. Grant courage to those who are called to spend their lives in tireless dedication to pastoral ministry of every kind. God of power and love, you made the humble curé of Ars powerful in holiness, in prayer, and in self-forgetful service of your people. Through his intercession and example, fill all your people with that love which wins devoted followers for your Son, our Lord Jesus Christ, who lives and reigns with you in the unity of the Holy Spirit, God forever and ever. Amen. St. John Vianney, pray for us. And a happy feast day to all the parish priests out there listening this morning. He is, of course, patron saint of parish priests. It is the Sunrise Morning Show. I'm Matt Swaim. Anna Mitchell has news. Paul Lockman at the controls. And up this hour, we got a lot to get to on a Monday morning. Kevin Schmiesing will take a look at this week in Catholic history. Dr. Jim Papandrea is going to be continuing our series on the churches of ancient Rome, doing a little pilgrimage guide, an audio pilgrimage here on the occasion of the Jubilee year. Father John Gavin has more thoughts from the Catechism and the Church Fathers as to how they are quoted within. And then Dr. Benjamin Reinhard has been going through his book, The High Hallow, Tolkien's Liturgical Imagination. More kind of interesting little tidbits from the works of J.R.R. Tolkien that point to the liturgical calendar. So, stay with us if you can. Right now it is 2 minutes past. Here's Anna Mitchell with news.
Good morning. More than 1 million people attended Mass celebrated by Pope Leo yesterday to mark the close of the Jubilee of Youth. The closing Mass in Rome marked the end of a week-long event attended by young faithful from more than 140 countries, according to the Vatican. The Pope made a dramatic entry to an open-air prayer vigil attended by hundreds of thousands of young Catholics the night before when he arrived by helicopter and then moved through the crowd in the Pope Mobile. In his homily at Mass yesterday morning, the Holy Father urged his young congregants to aspire to great things, to holiness wherever you are, and to not settle for less. From Vatican Radio, Deborah Castellano-Lubov reports.
La nostra speranza è Gesù.
The Holy Father acknowledged today's liturgy invites us to reflect on the encounter with the Risen One, who transforms our lives and enlightens our affections, desires, and thoughts. Pope Leo said, let us turn this thirst for something greater and more meaningful into a type of step stool, like children who stand on tiptoe in order to peer through the window of encounter with God. We will then find ourselves before Him who is waiting for us, knocking gently on the window of our soul. Pope Leo said it is truly beautiful, especially at a young age, to open wide your hearts and allow Him to enter and to set out on this adventure with God toward eternity. St. Augustine, reflecting on his intense search for God, the Pope recalled, asked himself, what then is the object of our hope? He is your hope. In recent days, the Pope remembered they had many beautiful experiences.
And received God's forgiveness, asking for His help to live a good life.
And through all of it can grasp an important point, that the fullness of our existence does not depend on what we store up, or, as we heard in the Gospel, what we possess, but rather has to do with what we joyfully welcome and share, and focusing on the things that are above.
Guardare in alto alle cose di lassù.
He told the young people, Jesus is our hope. It is He, as St. John Paul II said, who stirs in you the desire to do something great with your lives.
Aspirate a cose grandi, alla santità, ovunque siate.
Aspire to great things, to holiness, wherever you are. Do not settle for less.
Non accontentatevi di meno.
I'm Deborah Castellano-Lubov.
During his Angelus address after the Mass, the Holy Father prayed for young people in war-torn areas around the world.
In communion with Christ, our peace and hope for the world, we are closer than ever to young people who suffer the most serious evils, which are caused by other human beings. We are with the young people of Gaza. We are with the young people of Ukraine, with those of every land bloodied by war. My young brothers and sisters, you are the sign that a different world is possible, a world of fraternity and friendship, where conflicts are not resolved with weapons, but with dialogue.
He said, yes, with Christ it is possible, with his love, with his forgiveness, and with the power of his Spirit. My dear friends, he said, united to Jesus like branches to the vine, you will bear much fruit. You will be the salt of the earth and the light of the world. You will be seeds of hope where you live, in your families, among your friends, at school, at work, and in sports. You will be seeds of hope with Christ, our hope. End quote. The Holy Father went on during the Angelus address to announce the dates for the next World Youth Day. The event will be held in Seoul, South Korea from August 3rd through the 8th of 2027. In other news, the Trump administration is pushing a plan to end the war in Gaza. Mark Mayfield reports.
President Trump's special envoy to the Middle East, Steve Witkoff, met with families of Israeli hostages in Tel Aviv on Saturday and told them the U.S. is focused on a comprehensive deal to end the war and return all of the remaining captives. Witkoff said President Trump believes that everybody should come home at once and there should be no piecemeal deals. Israeli officials say that 50 hostages remain in Gaza, but only about 20 are believed to be alive. I'm Mark Mayfield.
Meanwhile, President Trump says nuclear submarines are, quote, in the region of Russia. Trump made the comments yesterday, just 2 days after saying the U.S. was positioning 2 nuclear submarines close to Russia. The decision was made to place them in what were described as appropriate regions after highly provocative statements from former Russian President Dmitry Medvedev. Trump on Thursday had issued a warning to Medvedev after he criticized the president's foreign policy to, quote, watch his words. And sadly, unless you're, with the Quest in Atlanta, the Braves took down the Reds 4-2 in the continuation of the Speedway Classic from Bristol Motor Speedway over the weekend. Eli White slugged a pair of home runs and drove in all 4 runs as Atlanta claimed 3-game series. Brent Suter got the loss after giving up 3 runs over 2+ innings. Cincinnati, I am sorry to say, has dropped 4 of 6.
Yeah. Well, it was kind of an interesting thing. Did you watch?
I didn't get to watch any of it, but I was looking at pictures and it was like
it's kind of surreal.
It was very surreal. I was telling my husband, I didn't realize, because I've never been to like a NASCAR or a Formula One event. Like I've never been to a speedway.
Event. I've been to Bristol though.
And
I drove my
not
2008 Kia Rondo on the track at Bristol.
Oh, neat. Well, I knew they were big, but I didn't realize they were so big that you could fit an entire baseball field in there.
No. Bristol is the smallest one.
Wow.
That's why Bristol's so crazy, is because they're doing NASCAR speeds on a track that small.
Wow. And yet it can still fit a baseball field in it.
Thunder Alley, the drag strip. No, so the reason, by the way, I should point out that I drove my 2008 Kia Rondo on the Bristol Speedway is because they have like a Christmas light display down there, and you can go and drive around, and there's like all these Christmas lights in the stands, and they turn the infield into like a little Christmas bazaar. So there you go, Anna Mitchell.
Wow. Kind of a cool experience, sounds like.
Yeah, I will say this, that the crack of the bat sounds different. For sure.
No doubt. Oh, yeah.
When you're playing in a...
But what a bummer, the whole rain out thing, and like...
Yeah, I know. I feel like if we'd have played it that night...
Cincinnati media, like the sports media here in Cincinnati, yeah, nobody's happy with the rain delays.
No. We would have had him if we'd have played that night. Oh, well.
What are you going to do?
The Quest is just like, yeah, right. We got you guys. Right? 10 past. It's time for a look at This Week in Catholic History, and here to help us with that is Kevin Schmiesing from the Freedom and Virtue Institute. Kevin, good morning.
Good morning, Matt.
So let's talk about a piece of history related to the age of First Communion.
Well, those of us who grew up Catholic probably received our First Communion at the age of 7 or thereabouts, but that's only been the universal norm in the Church since the early 20th century. It happened with this document, Quam Singulari, issued August 8, 1910. This was a decree issued by the Sacred Congregation for the Sacraments with the approval of Pope St. Pius X. The document itself summarizes the history of Eucharistic practice in the Church. It begins by citing the Gospel passage where Jesus delights in being around children and says, "Let the children come to me, do not hinder them." It notes that the practice of early Christianity, all the way up into the Middle Ages, was to administer communion to infants at baptism, and children were frequently given communion at Mass after that. It also notes that this practice of giving communion to infants survived in the Orthodox churches as it has down to the present, but it died out in the Western Church. And during the medieval period, it was thought better to wait until children could better understand the mystery. This approach was affirmed by the Fourth Lateran Council in 1215 and then reaffirmed at the Council of Trent, where it talked about the age of discretion or the age of reason. Then, this 1910 document states, however, that in the precise determination of the age of reason or discretion, not a few errors and deplorable abuses have crept in during the course of time. So it identifies, for example, that in some places in the Church, children who are 10, 12, even 14 years or older have not yet received communion, and some are denied the sacrament of confession at the same time. So we have 12 and 13-year-olds who are not given the graces of these sacraments. And so Quam Singulari defines the age of reason as when one can distinguish between the bread of the Holy Eucharist and ordinary bread. That's a pretty basic distinction that a 7-year-old can handle. It prescribed a list of rules, the first of which was the age of discretion, both for confession and for Holy Communion, is the time when a child begins to reason, that is about the 7th year, more or less. It says the custom of not admitting children to confession or not giving them absolution when they've already attained the use of reason must be entirely abandoned. And finally, it encouraged frequent, even daily communion by children and, by extension, all the faithful. Quam Singulari really kind of set the culture, the Eucharistic culture of the Church, if you will, in the 20th century and beyond. It was this week, 1910.
And listeners know by now that I'm a huge fan of Flannery O'Connor. Let's talk about some history related to her.
She died this week in 1964, one of our great American Catholic writers, Flannery O'Connor. She was born on the Feast of the Annunciation in 1925 into a middle-class family in Savannah, Georgia. At the age of 15, her family moved to a farm in Milledgeville, Georgia, and that's where she would spend most of her life when she was not away at school. Her father died of lupus shortly after that move. Flannery herself would later be diagnosed with that same disease. It would eventually claim her life. She graduated from Georgia State College with a degree in sociology and literature in 1945, and then she went to the University of Iowa, where she entered the prestigious writing program they had. She met prominent authors there, such as Robert Penn Warren, John Crowe Ransom. She produced her first novel, Wise Blood, in 1952. She's probably best known for her short stories. There are 2 collections of those. Common elements in those, well, most of them are set in the South. They often have race or poverty as their themes. They're often violent, even shocking. But at the center of all of them, the themes of grace, conversion, and redemption. Flannery O'Connor once wrote, "Grace changes us, and the change is painful." And she wrote about that pain. She was a devout Catholic throughout her life, a daily Mass goer when her health permitted, but unfortunately her health gradually declined. She died at Milledgeville at the age of 39. It was this week, August 3rd, 1964. Publications continued after her death. In fact, I think it's safe to say that her reputation has grown since the time of her death. Her prayer journal was published in 2013. She's also become very well known for her correspondence. She wrote lots of letters to lots of different people, and they're extremely interesting, offer insight into her mind and soul. Probably many people who are familiar with O'Connor know The Habit of Being, a collection of letters published in 1979. But my old professor from Franciscan University, Ben Alexander, came out with a new collection of letters previously unpublished. It's called Good Things Out of Nazareth. There's a line that I came across in a review of that collection that I think captures O'Connor well. It says, O'Connor's correspondence is a goldmine of piercing insight and startling reflections on everything from literature to philosophy to raising peacocks. That was Flannery O'Connor. She died this week in 1964.
Yeah, and she called herself, some people refer to her as a hillbilly nihilist, but she said, no, I'm a hillbilly Thomist. And there's actually a Dominican bluegrass folk band that has taken that as their name as well. Flannery O'Connor, rest in peace. And thanks so much, Kevin Schmiesing from the Freedom and Virtue Institute, for taking a look at This Week in Catholic History with us. We'll talk to you again next week.
Thank you, Matt.
And, again, I had the chance to go to Andalusia Farm in Milledgeville this summer. That was part of my big summer vacation. It's 1:15. We're back with headlines right after this. Support is from Christendom College. Catholic schools need leaders who understand their mission. Christendom College's Center for Educational Philosophy and Leadership offers Master of Education and Doctor of Education degrees online that equip educators to lead with confidence, clarity, and an uncompromising commitment to the faith. If you're called to shape the future of Catholic education, the tools to succeed are at Christendom College. Christendom.edu/education. That's Christendom.edu/education.
For over 500 years, the church-honored spiritual exercises of St. Ignatius of Loyola have formed many saints. This treasured way of personal prayer with God is now available to you for free. Order your free training manual at LordTeachMeToPray.com and bring Ignatian prayer to others. Lord Teach Me to Pray is approved by the USCCB. Order your free training manual at LordTeachMeToPray.com. Lord Teach Me to Pray underwrites the Sunrise Morning Show.
'Tis the season for iced tea. If you're looking for some unique flavors to enjoy, the Carmelite monks of Wyoming have a number of options, including lemongrass mint, ginger orange, and blossoming jasmine.
Go check them out through our link to Mystic Monk Coffee at sonrisemorningshow.com. And when you make a purchase, we earn a commission.
While you're at our site, pick up a mug or etched travel mug, which are available in our online store.
Get your mugs and link to Mystic Monk Coffee for tea at sonrisemorningshow.com.
Wings is a weekly newsletter that's packed with program information, features, and updates of all that's going on at EWTN. To sign up, go to EWTN.com, click subscribe, enter your name and email address, and you'll start getting your wings every week. Get your wings today. It's the weekly newsletter from EWTN, the Global Catholic Network.
"17 minutes past the hour. Here's Anna with headlines.
More than 1 million people attended Mass yesterday, celebrated by Pope Leo to mark the close of the Jubilee of Youth. During his Angelus address yesterday, the Holy Father prayed for young people in war-torn areas around the world. And the Trump administration is pushing a new plan to end the war in Gaza.
News at the top and bottom of each hour every weekday morning here on the Sunrise Morning Show. Anna Mitchell had a wonderful time in Palmyra, Virginia at St.
how'd it
Peter
go?
and Paul Church, celebrating their 40th anniversary. It was a blast.
Nice.
Gave a talk on Friday night and then a little brunch talk after Mass on Saturday morning. So thank you to Carolyn for the invitation. It was good to see Deb and Tony, some old friends of mine who were there as well. Also Alicia and Lily and a whole bunch of other folks there. It was a fun time.
I hope you recruited some new listeners of the Sunrise Morning Show.
I think so.
Okay.
It's always fun, Anna Mitchell, when I give a talk and I say, has anybody here ever listened to the Sunrise Morning Show? And, that I check to see which hands come up. Some people just come out because they're curious about a human being that they don't know coming to their parish. Mm-hmm. But then you get people to admit like how late in the morning they actually get up.
Mm-hmm.
So there's that.
Yeah.
So yeah,
I don't
we'll see.
begrudge anyone their sleep. That's why we have podcasts.
That's right. I mean, if I wasn't working, I might still be asleep.
I definitely would still be asleep.
But it reminded me too, as I was talking to a couple of the listeners, that there are those who are catching the show because they just woke up and now they're going to work. And there are those who work in certain fields that cause them to work through the night. First responders and truckers and those in the medical field who they catch the Sunrise Morning Show as, well, it's like their afternoon drive time because they're catching us on the way home.
Interesting.
So good morning to you, and I hope you get to sleep now.
Yeah, for real. Enjoy your nap.
That's right.
Happy Feast of St. John Vianney.
Indeed. Happy Feast of St. John Vianney to all the parish priests listening this morning. So Father Mark, my pastor, happy feast day.
Father John Paul, my pastor. Actually, you know what? Both parishes that I primarily attend, I kind of have dual parishionership. Pastors of both of those churches are Father John Paul.
Oh, really?
One is with an
But
H
they're two
and
different
one
guys,
is
right?
without an H, yeah.
Two different guys.
Yeah.
What do you know?
That's kind of cool. I hadn't really thought about that before.
Well, good day to you. Yeah, we'll celebrate their feast here in a couple months.
Yeah, October.
Their onomastico.
Indeed.
John Paul II. St. John Vianney, pray for us. It's 21 minutes past the hour.
Business owners are starting to think outside the box to find new customers. You can reach millions of engaged Catholic listeners by underwriting the Sunrise Morning Show. Each weekday morning, listeners across the U.S. and around the globe can hear your message for your business, ministry, or nonprofit on the Sunrise Morning Show. To find out how it works, email me, Leah@sacredheartradio.com. That's Leah@sacredheartradio.com.
If cold brew is what you like to drink when the weather's hot, why not save some cash and make your own with Mystic Monk Coffee? They have all kinds of coffee blends that taste great hot or cold.
They've got options for you to make iced tea as well. And when you click through to the Mystic Monks from our site, sonrisemorningshow.com, we earn a commission from your purchase.
You can also check out our online store to get a Sunrise Morning Show ceramic or travel mug.
Find a mug and link to Mystic Monk Coffee through sonrisemorningshow.com.
This is Every Day with St. Francis de Sales. The chief intention that we must have in going to communion should be to advance in the love of God. Communion should strengthen and comfort you in this love. Receive with love the gift of love. There is no more loving or more tender gift of the Savior than this. Here he annihilates himself, so to speak, and changes himself into food, so that he may fill our souls, intimately uniting himself to the heart and body of the faithful person. For Sacred Heart Radio, this is Father Chris Armstrong.
Dr. Jim Papandrea is professor of church history and historical theology. He is author of a bunch of books on the early church. You can hear him on the Way of the Fathers podcast, and you can get a copy of his recently re-released book for the Jubilee year. It's called Rome, A Pilgrim's Guide to the Eternal City. Dr. Papandrea, good morning.
Good morning. How are you?
So I'm doing great. We've got some really interesting stuff to talk about today with Saint Cecilia. And before we get into how she's remembered in the city of Rome, remind us of her story.
Well, Saint Cecilia is a 3rd century martyr, and she was really a young girl. I mean, maybe 16 years old, and like many young women back in the day, she was arranged to be married to someone that she didn't pick. It was an arranged marriage set up by her father. She was to be married to a pagan man, but what he didn't know was that she had already taken a vow of celibacy for her life as a part of her devotion to Christ. And so he finds this out on the wedding night, and so understandably he's a little bit surprised by this. And he demanded to see the bishop. And when he met the bishop, he was converted to the faith too. And so Cecilia and her husband became sort of this power couple of charity and caring for the poor in Trastevere, which was one of Rome's poorer areas back in the day. And this brought them to the attention of the authorities. And so this eventually led to her martyrdom. Now, many people know that Saint Cecilia is the patron of musicians, and that's because she was a singer. And it's said that when they tried to execute her, the first attempt at martyring her was to kill her by suffocating her in like a steam room in her house. And they waited for her to die, and she didn't. All they could hear was her singing in there the whole time. And so she has this reputation of singing praise to God even while they're trying to kill her.
Yeah, and she has been a favorite confirmation saint for a lot of people who I've known through the years, who I've helped through OCIA, and who happen to be really musical people. They love Saint Cecilia, and rightly so. Of course. But when you're there and exploring the sites related to her, is there any kind of remnant of where she lived still?
Yes, that's what's so amazing about this. You know, we talk about the earliest churches being house churches, and we sort of have that sense that people met in homes. Well, there are a few places in Rome where the church that still stands today, even though it was built hundreds and hundreds of years ago, the church still stands today that was built on the site of the earlier house church. And so St. Cecilia is one of these places where they've excavated part of her house underneath the church that is named after her. So you go to the Church of St. Cecilia in Rome, you go through the gift shop and down the stairs, and you can go into the excavations, and you can actually be standing in a small part of what was once her home. It's a Roman villa that goes back to even before the 3rd century, and this was her home, and this was a place of early Christian worship all the way back in the 3rd century.
That is so cool. With this, ability to kind of like be under and see what that might have looked like. Are you able to take people there on your pilgrimages? Is this one of the spots that you kind of put as a top site to go make sure you pay respects at?
Yeah, it really is. The Church of St. Cecilia, even without the excavations, would be one of my favorite churches because it's so beautiful. It's got just a really nice mosaic. But then when you add in the excavations, this is someplace I always take my groups, and you can go down in, and you can be standing on the same floor that these 3rd century Christians stood on. And, you can, I always tell my students, you bend down and touch the floor. You're touching the early church. You're touching the 3rd century. And their songs echoed off these walls. And then you can go into the crypt and you can see, where the relics of St. Cecilia and her husband and even that bishop from the time are there as well.
One of the things that a lot of evangelical Christians really gravitate toward is this idea of the early church meeting in houses and worshiping, and usually that's sort of coupled with a sense that these would have been like sort of really like informal gatherings where people sang a few songs and prayed spontaneously and that sort of thing. And of course, you've written at least one entire book talking about that's not how exactly it went down. But when you're standing in those places where early Christians would have worshipped in a house church before there was anything even remotely like a basilica out there to worship in, I mean, what comes up for you?
Well, I think that I want to think about how the Mass has been going on since the beginning of the church. And I think about a couple of things. When we go to Mass, we can sometimes remember that we're receiving the Eucharist spiritually along with everyone who is receiving the Eucharist in the world, and even the saints in paradise. But also, it's kind of like time travel in the past as well, because we can be connected to all the people who have received the Eucharist in the past. And so I think this is a place. I'm standing in a place where the Eucharist has been celebrated and received, since almost the beginning of the church. And like when you go to Mass and you see someone brings up the gifts, maybe they choose a family or a couple or someone to bring up the gifts before they're consecrated. I always think, somebody in the early church made that loaf of bread, or because they didn't have the little circular hosts. Somebody in the early house church made that bread and made that wine, and they brought it to the church. And this bringing up of the gifts reminds us that, these were contributions by the people that were then consecrated to become the body and blood of Christ. And so that goes all the way back to the beginning.
Thanks so much, Dr. Jim Papandrea. 1:30. Here's Anna with news.
Good morning. More than 1 million people attended Mass yesterday, celebrated by Pope Leo to mark the close of the Jubilee of Youth. The closing Mass in Rome marked the end of a week-long event attended by young faithful from more than 140 countries, according to the Vatican. The Pope made a dramatic entry to an open-air prayer vigil attended the night before by hundreds of thousands of young Catholics. He arrived by helicopter and then moved through the crowd in the Pope-mobile. In his homily at the Mass yesterday morning, Pope Leo urged the faithful to aspire to great things, to holiness wherever you are, and to not settle for less. Reflecting on the readings, the Holy Father said, quote, "Buying, hoarding, and consuming are not enough. We need to lift our eyes, to look upwards to the things that are above, to realize that everything in the world has meaning only insofar as it serves to unite us to God and to our brothers and sisters in charity, helping us to grow in compassion, kindness, humility, meekness, and patience, forgiveness and peace, all in imitation of Christ. And in this way," he said, "we will grow in an ever deeper understanding of what it means that hope does not disappoint, because the love of God has been poured into our hearts through the Holy Spirit who has been given to us." End quote. During his Angelus address yesterday, Pope Leo announced the dates for the next World Youth Day. The event will be held in Seoul, South Korea, and will be held from August 3rd through the 8th of 2027. Also, during his Angelus address, the Holy Father prayed for young people in war-torn areas around the world. From Vatican Radio, Thaddeus Jones has more.
In communion with Christ, our peace and hope for the world, we are closer than ever to young people who suffer the most serious evils, which are caused by other human beings. We are with the young people of Gaza. We are with the young people of Ukraine, with those of every land bloodied by war. My young brothers and sisters, you are the sign that a different world is possible, a world of fraternity and friendship, where conflicts are not resolved with weapons, but with dialogue.
The Pope's words came just before leading the Angelus prayer as he offered concluding greetings to the over 1 million pilgrims gathered for the Sunday morning outdoor Mass. He took the opportunity to invite everyone to express their immense gratitude to God for the gift of these days of their Jubilee. Finally, the Pope recalled that following this Jubilee pilgrimage of hope in Rome, the next destination on the horizon will be Asia, when the Pope will join them to celebrate World Youth Day in Seoul, Korea, from the 3rd to the 8th of August, 2027. He said, "May we continue to dream and hope together in view of the next meeting in Seoul." I'm Thaddeus Jones.
Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu is pushing for what he calls a military solution to free the remaining hostages being held by Hamas. More from Mark Mayfield.
ABC News, citing an Israeli official, said that Netanyahu is looking at the option as he hasn't been able to find a diplomatic solution to the ongoing hostage crisis. It is believed there are roughly 20 living hostages still being held by Hamas. I'm Mark Mayfield.
President Trump says that nuclear submarines are, quote, in the region of Russia. Trump made the comments yesterday, just 2 days after saying the U.S. was positioning 2 nuclear submarines close to Russia. The decision was made to place them in what were described as appropriate regions after highly provocative statements from former Russian President Dmitry Medvedev. Trump on Thursday had issued a warning to Medvedev after he criticized the president's foreign policy to, quote, watch his words. And 345 Park Avenue's lobby will reopen to its tenants this morning following last week's mass shooting that left 4 people dead. This as investigators continue to investigate the alleged shooter. The NFL remains the suspected target of the shooting and says its employees will remain remote throughout the week. That's the news on the Sunrise Morning Show. It's 35 minutes past the hour.
Looking for a taste of summer to start your day? Look no further than Mystic Monk Coffee, where you can find a number of special summer blends like banana rum and coconut margarita.
And you can earn a commission for the Sunrise Morning Show when you go to sonrisemorningshow.com first and click our link to the Mystic Monk site.
While at our site, be sure to check out our online store and pick up a Sunrise Morning Show travel mug to take on your summer road trip.
Get your mug and link to Mystic Monk Coffee at sonrisemorningshow.com.
That's sonrisemorningshow.com.
Business owners are starting to think outside the box to find new customers. You can reach millions of engaged Catholic listeners by underwriting the Sunrise Morning Show. Each weekday morning, listeners across the U.S. and around the globe can hear your message for your business, ministry, or nonprofit on the Sunrise Morning Show. To find out how it works, email me, Leah at sacredheartradio.com. That's Leah at sacredheartradio.com.
If there is one psalm that bears a great fascination for Christians, it is Psalm 22. Like many others, it is a call for the Lord's help, but Psalm 22 contains elements that seem particularly Christian. The opening verse of the psalm was quoted by Jesus on the cross. Later verses give details of the sufferings that Jesus endured. My God, why have you forsaken me? Far from my prayer, from the words of my cry. My heart is like wax, melting away within my bosom. Indeed, many dogs surround me. A pack of evildoers closes in upon me. They have pierced my hands and my feet. They have numbered all my bones. They look on me and gloat over me. They divide my garments among them, and for my vesture they cast lots. O Lord, be not far from me. O my help, hasten to aid me. For Sacred Heart Radio, I'm Father Dale Paterka.
The Sunrise Morning Show continues. It's always great to have Father John Gavin with us. He's the author of Mysteries of the Lord's Prayer and the recently released Growing into God. He's been going through the Catechism with us and looking at the various ways the Church Fathers are cited along the way. Father Gavin, good morning.
Good morning.
All right, we've been talking a lot about St. Augustine through the course of this series, and today we're talking more about his thoughts on natural law. So before we get into his thoughts on natural law, there are a lot of people who maybe hear that term tossed around a lot, and perhaps it's good for us to kind of give a simple and handy kind of explanation of what we mean by natural law as the Church.
Sure. Well, we can look to the Catechism itself for a good definition. We're looking at 1954 and 1955 in there. And it states in the Catechism that the natural law are the first and essential principles which govern the moral life. And we call it natural because it is reason which decrees it properly as belonging to human nature. That is, the first principles of the moral life, the natural law, can actually be discerned by the gift of human reason in reflecting on our very nature and our place in the world, because it is grounded in the divine law, in God's objective truth established in things. So it is a form of law of the moral life that's accessible to all, simply as human beings, using the gift of reason and reflecting on their nature.
Yeah, let's say later this afternoon someone encounters a tribe in the Amazon that has never had any kind of contact with the outside world or seen the Bible or anything like that. Something tells me they will think it's bad to...
Truth established by God. We don't make them up, but rather we hear how they are imprinted in our heart, that is, in our very nature. That would be the second point I would make. They are imprinted in our heart and in our very nature, but it requires reason to reflect on them and to see how they apply. And so they can be principles as basic as do good and avoid evil, but it's also the recognition of the dignity of persons. As you were saying earlier about it, anyone would know that to steal is something that would be contrary to the moral law, and our responsibilities to the common good would be another example. And then finally, he makes the point that the natural law, the divinely objective truth, is the foundation for all law, even civil law, right? That even civil law should be reflecting these divine principles established in our nature. So I think those would be 3 points I would pull out of the imagery that Augustine uses here.
All right, so this is really some interesting stuff. We're going to get into, I want to talk about reason, right? How, the natural law is to live according to the natural law is to live according to right reason. St. Augustine talks about this. Actually, a whole bunch of thinkers in the church talk about this. And I think it makes a lot of sense, because sometimes we think about sin as this thing where you just do something bad and you get in trouble. And we don't think often enough, I believe, about sin as you're acting in sort of conflict with reality and right reason, right? You're acting kind of irrationally when you sin, irrationally as in like unreasonably, like out of accord with reason.
Absolutely. In fact, when we look at what reason is and what the principles of the natural law are established by God, we have to remember that all things have been created through the Word, we hear in the prologue to the Gospel of John, through the Logos. And therefore there's a logic to creation. These are the principles that are established in creation, made in the image and likeness of God in our nature. But sin is illogical. It's contrary to the Word, contrary to the Logos, and therefore it's destructive. It puts holes in the goodness and fabric of nature. And so, yes, very good point. Sin is illogical. It doesn't make sense. And therefore, it's in that regard, it's a mystery why we keep doing it. Yeah.
So I'll give you a kind of an interesting example of this. So Chesterton has this great quip, and he says it a few different ways, that if you won't follow the 10 Commandments, you're going to end up getting the 10,000 Commandments. So a couple years ago, I looked at the pool rules at our local pool, and instead of having like a list of like 6 or 7 things, there's a list of like a couple hundred things, it looks like. They got 2 big panels of just like rules about the pool, like A through AK.3. And it's a lot of like stuff like children under the age of 2 must have an adult with them if they decide they want to come to the pool, right? Or things like, please don't smoke in the pool. Or, don't get into the pool with an open wound that is currently bleeding. Like little things like this. These are rules that if you were actually using right reason, nobody would have to ever say out loud. Like, this is all, like, stuff that because we have all these rules and regulations that are not really part of the natural law, I guess you could say, because we don't know how to use the natural. And the natural law would say, if you have an open bleeding wound, don't get in the pool. If you have a 2-year-old, don't drop them off by the pool by themselves and then go leave. Like, these are all, like, normal, like, right reason kind of things. But somebody somewhere did something, and now they have a rule about it.
That's it's very, very true. That's the age that we live in. Everything has to be spelled out in that way. And of course, Chesterton was some call him the apostle of common sense. So a loss of common sense, of that capacity to discern from the greater principles of the natural law to how one applies them in these particular situations, from a pool to just going on a field trip nowadays. Everything has to be covered. I think we have lost that sense in many ways because we've tossed out the idea of reason or human nature itself. Where are these things going to be grounded in?
Well, and it's easy to make fun of when you look at the pool rules and see like a gazillion different restrictions and sub-laws, but it makes a lot more sense when you think about, when's the last time I was angry? You know what? I was not thinking straight. I was not being reasonable when I lost my temper. So, I mean, there's a lot of ways to reflect on this, and I really appreciate you getting into it with St. Augustine and breaking it down for us this morning, Father John Gavin. If people want to get a copy of your brand new book, Growing into God, how do they do so?
Well, I believe you have a link on your website, and then it's also available on Amazon. So, and the Barnes & Noble, so yes.
Absolutely, wherever Catholic books are sold. Father John Gavin, thank you so much. As always, have a wonderful day.
Thank you, and God bless.
All right, 14 till. We're back right after this with Dr. Benjamin Reinhardt.
Support for Sacred Heart Radio is from the Comboni missionaries, serving the poorest and most abandoned people in 41 countries, preaching the gospel of Jesus Christ and preparing local Christian leaders to serve their people, all while helping improve the quality of life with resources like food, clean water, medicine, and schools. Learn more about Comboni missionaries at combonimissionaries.org. That's combonimissionaries.org.
Most of us rely on our mobile phones even for our home phone. But did you know that most mobile phone carriers support abortion and anti-family organizations? Charity Mobile is different. They never support groups that are opposed to the Catholic Church's teachings. Charity Mobile offers great coverage with nationwide calling and plans to fit most budgets. Plus, 5% of your monthly plan is donated to the pro-life, pro-family charity of your choice. Find out more at CharityMobile.com/sunrise. That's CharityMobile.com/SONRise. Do you like your coffee cold and maybe a little sweet this time of year? Look no further than Mystic Monk Coffee for a variety of flavors that would be perfect for your summer cold brew.
And when you click the Mystic Monk link at sunrisemorningshow.com before you buy, we get a commission from your purchase.
By the way, our Sunrise Morning Show travel mugs are really good at keeping drinks cold, and you can find those in our online store.
Pick out a mug and link to the Mystic Monks through sunrisemorningshow.com.
That's sunrisemorningshow.com.
Discover the beauty, truth, and goodness of the Church. With the EWTN online learning series, you can delve into the riches of the faith and grow closer to the Lord with free videos and study guides. Enroll in the EWTN online learning series free courses today at learningseries.ewtn.com.
Joining us again on the Sunrise Morning Show is Dr. Ben Reinhardt. We've been going through his book from Emmaus Road Publishing, The High Hallow, Tolkien's Liturgical Imagination. Good morning, Dr. Reinhardt.
Good morning.
So last time we were together, we talked about how steeped in medieval literature Tolkien was, obviously, and how his writing reflected it. And there was this specific example we discussed about the parallels between The Hobbit and Beowulf. And, of course, we can see this liturgically as well. And you argue in the book that in the same way that we discussed medieval literature, the climax, this is a quote, the climax of the Return of the King is patterned on the Paschal liturgy. But then you go on to distinguish between being patterned and being an allegory. What's the difference?
Oh, well, so, allegory is a really tricky term. It's a tricky term in whatever literature you're going to discuss. If you're talking about the Bible, if you're talking about Dante's Divine Comedy, and it's tricky if you're talking about Tolkien, too. When Tolkien says his work's not an allegory, what he means to say is that he did not write it with any other purpose directly in mind. He didn't write it to smuggle in truths of the faith. He didn't write it and have it be really about the sacrifice of Christ on Calvary, right? The story's about itself. But at the same time, just like he looks to medieval literature and sort of takes patterns he finds there, he'll do the same thing with his work and the liturgy of the church, right? So last time we talked about how there are these really eerie similarities between The Hobbit and Beowulf, right? And that is because he used Beowulf sort of as a template to tell his story. In the same way, he uses the liturgical seasons of Lent and Triduum and then the Easter season to provide something like a template for the climax of the work in the Return of the King.
So you're telling me that, Aragorn is not a Christ figure?
Not saying that Aragorn's not a Christ figure, right? He is a Christ figure, but if all you did was to say, Aragorn means Jesus or Frodo means Jesus, you'd be missing something really, really important about what he's doing, right? If you want to think about it this way, Tolkien would allow that these events, he imagines all these events happening in our actual history. So in the same way that Abraham can be a Christ figure or Isaac can be a Christ figure. The characters in his work can too, but it's not like he's not a Christ figure in the way that Aslan is a Christ figure, I think it would be the way to put it.
Yeah, okay. I was going to say I was drawing comparisons between that and the C.S. Lewis and the Chronicles of Narnia as you were saying that. Why does this difference matter when it comes to reading Tolkien, do you think?
I think it's actually one of the very big secrets to his success, because when people read C.S. Lewis, right, it doesn't take very long for people to figure out that the White Witch is the power of Satan, or is like the power of Satan, that Aslan is like Jesus. And C.S. Lewis says it's not an allegory, but it's an allegory, right? And I think what happens for a lot of people, especially secular people, when they figure it out, they're like, oh, well, I don't want that. And so they reject it. They realize the game that C.S. Lewis is playing, and they push against it. Tolkien is a much more subtle storyteller. And so, look, what does he do? He takes you through the desert with Sam and Frodo, and you've got the sort of the preparation and the self-emptying and the sacrifice. You've got the ascent up the terrible mountain. You've got the Frodo's "It is finished." You've got the earthquake. You've got everything there that you would find on Good Friday, right? You've got all those really important things. And you've got the resurrection sometime later, the white robes and the sound of music. It's all patterned on what we experience in Lent, Triduum, and Easter. But because it's much more subtle, people think that they're just reading a great story, and they don't realize how their imagination is being formed by reading that story.
I love this point, because I really don't like being hit over the head with the message. Dr. Reinhard, do you?
I can tolerate it sometimes, but
sure, okay.
But I find it more powerful when you put a book down and you just have this sort of powerful feeling or a longing in your heart, and then you realize, oh, that's what I was looking for. This is why I think you actually have this strange phenomenon of people converting to the Catholic Church after reading Tolkien. Yeah. I was just talking to a gentleman last week who, one of the last things he did before he converted was reread Lord of the Rings. And what you see there is you feel these desires stirred up. You long for this kind of beauty and this kind of rich life and this kind of, deeper existence. And then when you encounter something like the liturgy of the church, when you encounter the prayer, when you encounter the 2,000 years of history and tradition, you find out that that's what you were very often longing for. And that's why you see it happening again and again.
Agreed. Now, we've been discussing how this is not an allegory, but how does the idea of the eucatastrophe, which comes up so often in our conversations with you, how does that kind of rise above all of this?
So when you come to the eucatastrophe, this is where Tolkien can't quite keep everything distinct, because the eucatastrophe, the happy ending, is, he says, the heart of every fairy tale, but it's also the heart of all of human history, right? It's what happens with the story of God's relationship with the world he created, where the incarnation is the eucatastrophe of the story of human history, and the resurrection of Christ is the eucatastrophe of the story of the incarnation. And so the fairy tale happy ending is this thing that pierces the veil, and it lets you see the way the world actually works, and it lets you see for a moment clearly the way things really are. At the climax of Lord of the Rings, when all the people are feasting together and they sing the song and they laugh and they cry and they pass out into regions where joy and sorrow are at one together, this is Tolkien's exact description of what the supreme joy of the Gloria is. And so in that moment, you have them, the stories and the characters in the fairy tale, they are all together partaking of the joy of which the Gloria in Excelsis is the purest expression. So that's the one moment where you pierce through the veil in the story and you see what it's all ultimately pointing to, which is the union with God, where our joys and our sorrows all become one, and they're taken up into something higher still.
Wow. Well, thank you so much, Dr. Ben Reinhard. You can find his book, The High Hallow, Tolkien's Liturgical Imagination, linked at sonrisemorningshow.com. It's from Emmaus Road Publishing. And sonrisemorningshow.com is where you can find links to all of our guests that you hear on a daily basis. Be sure to click the subscribe button so that you can get all that info in your inbox every morning as we go on the air. And if you haven't by now, I mean, come on. Download our Sacred Heart Radio Sunrise Morning Show app while you're over at the website so you can listen live and get our podcasts and everything on your smartphone. All at sonrisemorningshow.com. We got another hour coming up for most of our affiliates here on EWT.
Arise, it's a new day. Hear his word, let us pray. The Sunrise Morning Show. Better way to start your day.
It is Monday, the 4th of August, the feast of St. John Vianney, the patron saint of parish priests. Let's pray a prayer of his in the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit. I love you, O my God, and my only desire is to love you until the last breath of my life. I love you, O my infinitely lovable God, and I would rather die loving you than live without loving you. I love you, Lord, and the only grace I ask is to love you eternally. My God, if my tongue cannot say in every moment that I love you, I want my heart to repeat it to you as often as I draw breath. Our Father who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. Amen. St. John Vianney, pray for us. It is the Sunrise Morning Show. Thanks for being along here on the EWTN Global Catholic Radio Network. I'm Matt Swaim. Anna Mitchell has news. Paul Achman at the controls. We'll catch up with Teresa Tomeo from EWTN and Ave Maria Radio's Catholic Connection. Dr. John Kerwin will be with us from a great program in educational leadership that's just starting up at Christendom College. Perhaps that's the area of professional work you do, and you want to figure out, how do I do a better job of being a better-formed Catholic educator, or a better-formed educator who brings my Catholic faith to bear on everything that I do, even in the public schools. Dr. Kerwin will have some thoughts on that and some opportunities for you. Father Philip Leray he's going to talk about an MIT study on artificial intelligence and the brain, and then Stephanie Mann will mark the 135th anniversary of the death of St. John Henry Newman, who is now recently, as of last week, been declared a doctor of the church. So, stay with us if you can. Right now it is 2 minutes past. News a service of Bridgetown Finer Meats and BridgetownFinerMeats.com, as well as Central Fabricators and CentralFabricators.com. Here's Anna Mitchell.
Good morning. More than 1 million people attended Mass celebrated by Pope Leo yesterday to mark the close of the Jubilee of Youth. The closing Mass in Rome marked the end of a week-long event attended by young faithful from more than 140 countries, according to the Vatican. The Pope made a dramatic entry to an open-air prayer vigil attended the night before by hundreds of thousands of young Catholics when he arrived by helicopter and then moved through the crowd in the Pope Mobile. At Mass yesterday morning, in his homily, the Holy Father urged his young faithful to aspire to great things, to holiness wherever you are, and to not settle for less. From Vatican Radio, Deborah Castellano-Lubov reports.
La nostra speranza è Gesù.
The Holy Father acknowledged today's liturgy invites us to reflect on the encounter with the Risen One, who transforms our lives and enlightens our affections, desires, and thoughts. Pope Leo said, let us turn this thirst for something greater and more meaningful into a type of step stool, like children who stand on tiptoe in order to peer through the window of encounter with God. We will then find ourselves before Him who is waiting for us, knocking gently on the window of our soul. Pope Leo said it is truly beautiful, especially at a young age, to open wide your hearts and allow him to enter and to set out on this adventure with God toward eternity. St. Augustine, reflecting on his intense search for God, the Pope recalled, asked himself, "What then is the object of our hope? He is your hope." In recent days, the Pope remembered they had many beautiful experiences.
And received God's forgiveness, asking for his help to live a good life.
And through all of it can grasp an important point, that the fullness of our existence does not depend on what we store up, or, as we heard in the Gospel, what we possess, but rather has to do with what we joyfully welcome and share, and focusing on the things that are above.
Guardare in alto alle cose di lassù.
He told the young people, Jesus is our hope. It is he, as St. John Paul II said, who stirs in you the desire to do something great with your lives.
Aspirate a cose grandi, alla santità, ovunque siate.
Aspire to great things, to holiness, wherever you are. Do not settle for less.
Non accontentatevi di meno.
I'm Deborah Castellano-Lubov.
During his Angelus address after Mass, the Holy Father prayed for young people in war-torn areas around the world.
In communion with Christ, our peace and hope for the world, we are closer than ever to young people who suffer the most serious evils, which are caused by other human beings. We are with the young people of Gaza. We are with the young people of Ukraine, with those of every land bloodied by war. My young brothers and sisters, you are the sign that a different world is possible. A world of fraternity and friendship, where conflicts are not resolved with weapons, but with dialogue.
The Holy Father said, yes, with Christ it is possible, with his love, with his forgiveness, and with the power of his Spirit. My dear friends, he said, united to Jesus, like branches to the vine, you will bear much fruit. You will be the salt of the earth and the light of the world. You will be seeds of hope where you live, in your families, among your friends, at school, at work, and in sports. You will be seeds of hope with Christ, our hope. End quote. The Holy Father went on to announce the dates for the next World Youth Day. The event will be held in Seoul, South Korea, from August 3rd through the 8th of 2027. In other news, the Trump administration is pushing a plan to end the war in Gaza. Mark Mayfield reports.
President Trump's special envoy to the Middle East, Steve Witkoff, met with families of Israeli hostages in Tel Aviv on Saturday and told them the U.S. is focused on a comprehensive deal to end the war and return all of the remaining captives. Witkoff said President Trump believes that everybody should come home at once and there should be no piecemeal deals. Israeli officials say that 50 hostages remain in Gaza, but only about 20 are believed to be alive. I'm Mark Mayfield.
And actress Lonnie Anderson, who played Jennifer Marlowe on WKRP in Cincinnati, has died at the age of 79. She died at a hospital in Los Angeles on Sunday after a battle with a prolonged illness. According to her publicist, the role on the popular CBS sitcom earned Anderson nominations for 3 Golden Globe Awards and 2 Emmys. I couldn't not mention.
You had to mention
this.
it because Anna Mitchell, every time I'm in any kind of like a airplane or family gathering or somewhere where nobody's ever heard of me, but they ask me what I do, and I tell them what I do. They're like, "Oh, you mean like WKRP in Cincinnati?"
Mm-hmm. Especially when they find out that we originate in Cincinnati.
Yes.
Yeah, there's a Catholic publicity firm, Carmel Communications.
Yes.
And every time that they send something to us here,
it's WNOP
to Anna
in
Mitchell to at WNOP in Cincinnati.
Cincinnati. I always felt like I'm the Les Nessman of this operation. Maybe.
No doubt.
Perhaps the Dr. Johnny Fever. I don't know. I don't know what I am in here. Maybe I'm Mr.
You're
Carlson.
something. You're something.
That's Bill
Matt.
Levitt. That's Bill Levitt.
You know what? You're something.
There you go.
There you go.
Teresa Tomeo now joining us from EWTN's Catholic Connection. Good morning, Teresa.
Hey, good morning, but this is how old I am. Gordon Jump, the man who played the station manager, spoke to our broadcasting conference at Central Michigan University when I was
You talked to Mr. Carlson? My goodness.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Wow,
Yep.
that guy.
He sure
was
did.
He was always worried about what his mother was going to think of the station. So.
Yep.
I'm
And
not sure.
She was only 79. She was young.
Yeah. Well, Teresa, what kind of stuff are you up to this week?
Well, I was just telling your wonderful producer, Paul, that yesterday we checked into the beautiful Grand Hotel on Mackinac Island for yet another grand getaway, and you should see the lineup we have. So we have Father Michael Schmitz, we have Father Leo Pedlinghug,
All
we
right.
have Dr. Ted Shree, and
Wow.
Steve Ray. What
Man.
a lineup. Yeah.
That sounds like a party.
It is. Party on the island. A Catholic party on the island. No, it's been, so far it's been great, and we had a wonderful Mass yesterday celebrated by Father Mike. And then we had a beautiful little cocktail hour on the porch, and the porch is famous for the Grand Hotel. It's the largest porch, I think, at a hotel in the world. And you oversee the Straits of Mackinac. To the front of you, to the right of you is what we call in Michigan the Mighty Mac, the Mackinac Bridge. And the weather is just a little bit hazy because of the Canadian wildfire smoke, but beautiful day here, and we have another full day today. And then we give them a few hours in the afternoon so they can go out, ride their bikes, go shopping for their fudge in Mackinac. But it's just it's a mini pilgrimage. It's really wonderful. It's become quite a tradition.
Well, Teresa, I've thought about this a lot in the years since I got involved in various Catholic media things, and it's always great to go to those events and hear those talks. But man, I'm so grateful when people who do these conferences build in some free time and build in some time for some social engagement where people can actually get to know one another, get to talk, get to kind of like process what it was that they maybe heard in one of those presentations. I've been at some of these things before where they cram so much into a day, and you're like, I would have loved to talk to some of the guys at this men's conference, and maybe exchange some emails and like broke down what it was that we heard. And so I'm always grateful when I hear about these events when they build that into the schedule.
Well, it also gives you time to reflect and maybe take a walk, because this island is just so beautiful. The nature is gorgeous. You're surrounded, obviously, by water, and there's great paths that you can walk and bike rides you can take. And the flowers up here in northern lower Michigan in the summertime are just phenomenal. These bright geraniums and the yellow sunflowers. It's so pretty in the white houses. It's really a gorgeous place to be. And there's so many places along the paths, or maybe on one of the parks along the hotel. You can just bring your Bible, your Word Among Us, and just sit and reflect and take a look at the notes you took during the talk. You need that. You can't just keep taking in information. And that's why I tell people when they go on pilgrimage, I don't care where they go, whether it's, Italy, Poland, Spain, France, you can't just go boom, 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 boom. You have to have time to mingle with the other pilgrims, but also just to reflect on what you're taking in, because you just can't, take in TMI too much. It's going to be information overload. It's too much,
Yeah. I had an opportunity. I was speaking at a parish in Virginia this past weekend, and I got to tell you, it's one thing. It's kind of fun to put together a talk and a presentation, but I love just the Q&A stuff.
Yes.
I love just talking to people afterwards, hearing what they're experiencing, like hearing, how they're kind of trying to process this stuff. And to me, this is the best part of that experience, is getting to hear people from all over the place and get some fresh take from them about how the Lord's working in their life, and hear some fresh take from them about, what's a question that they were wrestling with, or what's a moment of grace that caused them to be the kind of person who's now involved at their parish. Like, this is, to me, like that's the part that I like the most. I mean,
I also think it gives us as speakers and as talk show hosts an opportunity to see what's on people's minds. And I think we all try to connect with our listeners on a regular basis, but that one-on-one communication is really helpful. So it's a great weekend. It's really relaxing, and it's a very popular place for Michiganders, as we say, but we're meeting so many people that came to this event who'd never been to Mackinac Island before. Even a woman from Cincinnati approached me yesterday, speaking of WKRP, and listens to you guys and the Catholic Connection, all of our EWTN programming. And I said, so you're from Cincinnati. Maybe you've been up to the island before. She goes, no, I've never been up here. She says, it's so exciting. But it's always fun when you first arrive, because then you bump into people, you see their name tags, and you exchange greetings and salutations and whatnot. But yes, it's a great time. It's 2 nights, Sunday and Monday. And we kind of move it around each year. Sometimes it's in July. Most of the time it's in early August. But the weather is gorgeous, and it's not too hot. yesterday it was perfect, like 80 degrees and sunny, and so everybody, even people from like Texas who are so used to the humidity. One of the Rome boys is here. Chris is here with his beautiful 6 daughters and his beautiful wife, and all the people from Texas are like, oh, this is so nice. There's no humidity. So it's kind of fun.
Yeah.
Getting a different atmosphere. But, yeah, we're having a great time. And so I go live at 9 o'clock, and we have you have the day off today because we have straight live guests. We have Dr.
I was about to say, kick me off the air for Father Mike Schmitz.
Sorry.
I won't be offended.
I know. What can I tell you? You know, he's taking precedent. But so it's going to be really fun. We're going to go right from the top of the hour because we have so many wonderful guests. So we'll go right at the beginning of the 9 o'clock hour and just go through this list of wonderful guests we have with a live audience in the Grand Hotel Ballroom.
Very cool. Speaking, by the way, of reading name tags from all over the place, I'm excited because you and me and Anna Mitchell get to be on one of the panels of the many presentations at the EWTN Catholic Radio Conference at the end of this month. So I always love getting to catch up with those folks who help make Catholic radio possible across the country and who I only get to see like every once in a while. I'm telling you, these people are the ones who are making it happen in towns all across the USA, and it's so cool to be able to see them and meet with them and just hear how things are going.
Yeah, it's funny. There were 2 people here from St. Louis, and they said they volunteered for Covenant Radio.
All right.
So we took some pictures to send to Tony, so I hope Tony got the pictures from the Grand Hotel porch. Yeah.
Very cool.
Really fun.
Yeah, they've been making Catholic radio happen for they're like some of the I don't know, they're like legends in the Catholic radio affiliate world, the Holmans.
Yeah.
So
it's beautiful.
Well, Teresa, we'll be catching Catholic Connection and excited to hear all kind of fun things that are happening live on the ground there. And
enjoy your day off today, mister, from Catholic Connection.
Go sniff a geranium for me.
Okay, will do. Have a great day.
All right, it's 1:15. We're back right after this.
Are you paying high prices with traditional health insurance that pays for things that violate your conscience? There is an alternative. Solidarity Health Share, a Sunrise Morning Show underwriter, is a community of faithful individuals and families that never share into immoral medical services. Solidarity is not insurance. It's a not-for-profit medical cost-sharing ministry. They offer an alternative way to fund your medical expenses that's ethical, affordable, and more comprehensive. As a member, you choose the doctors you want to see by presenting your Solidarity member ID card. Solidarity allows you to remain faithful to Roman Catholic teachings, and you will never share into immoral medical procedures like abortion, sterilization, or contraception. Memberships start as low as $85 per month for singles and $512 for families. To learn more, 844-313-4999. That's 844-313-4999 or solidarityhealthshare.org.
If cold brew is what you like to drink when the weather's hot, why not save some cash and make your own with Mystic Monk Coffee? They have all kinds of coffee blends that taste great hot or cold.
They've got options for you to make iced tea as well. And when you click through to the Mystic Monks from our site, sonrisemorningshow.com, we earn a commission from your purchase.
You can also check out our online store to get a Sunrise Morning Show ceramic or travel mug.
Find a mug and link to Mystic Monk Coffee through sonrisemorningshow.com.
The most original and exclusive Catholic content is on EWTN Radio.
You know, we talk story with each of our very unique guests for the whole hour so that you can go deep with us as you yourself pursue your own story of heroic virtue and as you pursue intimacy with God.
The Bear Wozniak Adventure, Saturday night, 6 Eastern on EWTN Radio.
17 past. Here's Anna with headlines.
More than 1 million people attended Mass yesterday, celebrated by Pope Leo to mark the close of the Jubilee of Youth. During his Angelus address after the Mass, the Holy Father prayed for young people in war-torn areas around the world, especially in the Holy Land and in Ukraine. And the Holy Father also announced the dates for the next World Youth Day, August 3rd through the 8th. 2027 in Seoul, South Korea.
News at the top and bottom of each hour every weekday morning here on the Sunrise Morning Show. Anna Mitchell, did you see any of the pictures of like the crowd for the Jubilee of Youth? It's insane.
Unbelievable. Yeah.
You know, we're sitting there over the weekend. They had the Speedway Classic at Bristol, and they're like, we got 100,000 people out to watch this baseball game. Well, that's like about 10% of what they had in Rome this weekend.
It's amazing.
Isn't that crazy?
It's crazy.
Like,
it's crazy.
It's hard to in your mind think, what does a million people look like?
It really makes
place?
me wonder what the canonization on September 7th is going to look like. I don't want to get my hopes up or anything.
Well,
and
it'll be
certainly
tricky.
The crowd size is not going to be that's not the big story, obviously, but at the same time, you see how many teenagers showed up for the Jubilee of Teenagers during the octave of Easter, and then how many young people showed up for the Jubilee of Youth this past week.
What's funny, by the way,
I just hope there was enough time for them to plan to get back to Rome in September,
Yeah, well, see, this is why I'm wondering what the crowds are going to be like, because there's some people who just were like, I'm just going to this Jubilee instead of that thing, or, whatever. But it's funny to hear how youth are talked about in the Catholic Church. For us in the evangelical youth group was the high schoolers.
Yeah.
And so everybody else was young adults. We wouldn't call them the youth anymore. So, we had a youth room that was not for young adults.
Interesting, yeah.
It had all the posters of the Christian rock and roll bands in it and stuff. But it's going to be a fun thing. I will say this, Anna Mitchell, that Pope Leo, he appears to be thoroughly enjoying his job.
Yeah,
and it is fun to
so.
watch. This guy likes his job.
Yeah.
He's
taking
enjoy
it
watching
all in.
I mean, there are people who are having a good time right now. But I don't know if anybody's having as much fun as Pope Leo, getting in that Pope Mobile and just high-fiving people and grinning, and it's fun. It's fun to watch.
Yeah. It is fun. It's exciting to see, and clearly he was energized by the crowds.
It's an interesting thing for me too. I mean, I came into the church and John Paul II was in his decline. Benedict XVI just wanted to go back to the library, and they put him in the chair of Peter. Pope Francis had his own kind of quirky Jesuit personality, but Leo, I've never seen a guy have this much fun as Pope in my lifetime.
Yeah.
I mean, I know those who saw John Paul II got to see that all the time back in the 80s.
But you didn't get that. Yeah.
This is a first for me.
Starting to think outside the box to find new customers. You can reach millions of engaged Catholic listeners by underwriting the Sunrise Morning Show. Each weekday morning, listeners across the U.S. and around the globe can hear your message for your business, ministry, or nonprofit on the Sunrise Morning Show. To find out how it works, email me, Leah, at sacredheartradio.com. That's Leah at sacredheartradio.com.
Hello, I'm Father Timothy Shear, and these are Biblical Impressions. We all recognize that last words can be very important. This is true for the patriarch Jacob. Near the end of his long life, Jacob makes these remarks to his children. He says, "Since I'm about to be taken to my kindred, bury me with my fathers in the land of Canaan. There Abraham and his wife Sarah are buried, and there too I buried Leah." Those words might go unnoticed by a casual reader of the Bible, but we should remember that for Jacob to even speak the name of Leah is itself an indication of a profound change within him. Through all his life, Jacob spoke of Rachel, his beloved Rachel, and her sons Joseph and Benjamin. His other sons recognized that Joseph was the favored one, just as his mother was the favored one. It shows that Jacob was finally turning towards gratitude and graciousness to God. It's interesting when the story of his life concludes, we read, "When Jacob had finished giving these instructions to his sons, he drew his feet into the bed." His journey is over, and he has made that journey well. For Sacred Heart Radio, I'm Father Timothy Shear.
The Sunrise Morning Show continues, and it's great to have back on the show Dr. John Kerwin, Director of the Center for Educational Philosophy and Leadership at Christendom College. They're online at christendom.edu. Dr. Kerwin, good morning.
Good morning. Thanks for having me on.
So before we get into what's going on and the cool news with the Educational Philosophy and Leadership Center there at Christendom, we just had the guy who wrote the whole thing on the idea of a university, get declared a doctor of the church. What kind of a shot in the arm is that for you and what you're trying to do there at Christendom?
It's fantastic, and it couldn't be more timely, because what we're trying to do at the center is really recover the Catholic idea of teaching. And the Catholic Church has been thinking a lot about education for the last 2,000 years. And in many ways, we've forgotten what the Church has said. And so the center really hopes to recover the great tradition of Catholic educational philosophy, educational thought, educational practice, and put it into a really constructive engagement with the good and oftentimes the bad of modern progressive education. And, kind of meld this with practical application in the classroom, as well as, the spiritual development of the Catholic teacher, which is really, which is often forgot in teacher training programs.
Well, and this is why I'm so excited about what you're doing with the Center for Educational Philosophy and Leadership there at Christendom, and why I'm so excited that this is, it appears to be a movement within Catholic education, that we don't merely offer, the same thing that the public schools offer with religion classes added on. There's a whole different way of looking at people that you're trying to help us to recover as church, right?
Absolutely, absolutely. And one of the challenges is that oftentimes Catholic schools have adopted the ethos, the practice, the philosophy of progressive education, mainstream education, uncritically. And one of the things that we're doing at the center is looking at that and saying, all right, listen, we've had progressive education since John Dewey and Henry Thorndike for, 125 years. But, the educational principles really are grounded on a worldview that's really antithetical to the Catholic worldview, that the human being can't have a soul. Truth can't exist in the way that it has to exist for Catholics. It does exist, the correspondence between the mind and reality, and that ultimately all learning is experiential, or all learning is merely behavior modification or for some kind of political end or something. And so we really need to get back to doing what we do really well, which is teach human beings. And, St. Augustine knew this, St. Bonaventure knew this, Socrates knew this. And St. John Henry Newman now, he certainly knew it.
Yeah, indeed. Again, not just teaching facts, but forming people. This is what this is all about. And, I know that there are probably a lot of people listening who are already in jobs in Catholic education, or maybe they're even, homeschooling and are, forming people in every way that a person can possibly form a person there in the domestic church. But there are also probably some people listening who, as they're heading back to school at the beginning of the year, thinking, this is what I want to do. I wonder what maybe you can offer to them and let them know about in regards to this program at Christendom.
Absolutely. Well, we have two programs. We have a Doctor of Education, and we have a Master of Education, and it's an MED. So I'll just tell you about the Master of Education. Well, it's precisely designed for these people, for teachers, for people who are wanting to get in the classroom, wanting to get back in the classroom. And we've made it as rigorous and as rich, but as accessible as possible. It's evening-based. It's live online. We don't have recorded lectures. You're on there with I have a great professor coming in this fall to teach philosophy of education. It's going to be a fantastic course. Each course is once a week in the evenings. They're affordable. It's really, we've made this as accessible as possible, because we really want to reach as many people, and especially as many educators, because Catholic teachers need their credentials. They need to get that master's degree along with everybody else. And so we don't want them to have to go to secular institutions because there's nothing available. So we're really doing what we can to reach out to the diocese and to really, give them a live option for, kind of drinking from the riches of drinking from the waters of the Church's tradition regarding how we teach people.
Well, and how we have conversations about what a human being is. This is the Church just has a plain old different answer to that question than kind of the John Dewey system, as it were. It's just a different set of answers, and it's a richer set of answers. It's a more life-giving set of answers. So, Dr. John Kerwin from the Center for Educational Philosophy and Leadership at Christendom College, remind our listeners how they can get in touch with you and find out more now that you're officially up and running.
Well, you can go to christendom.edu/CEPL, Christendom College Center for Educational Philosophy. You can contact me, reach out. I'm on the website. I'm happy to talk to anybody who's interested in our programs.
Well, we've got it linked at sunrisemorningshow.com. Very excited about what you're working on there. Can't wait to see the fruits of this, in the Catholic education systems, in classical schools and dioceses and homeschool settings even. There's just enormous fruit to be reaped from this kind of formation. Again, christendom.edu if you want to find out more and connect with Dr. John Kerwin. Thank you so much. Have a wonderful day.
Thanks so much. Appreciate it.
And again, when you go to sunrisemorningshow.com, not only can you find a lot of the cool things that we discuss and the people we discuss them with, link on over to them, but you can also get the app so you can go back and catch maybe part of an interview that you missed, or maybe there was something that, somebody like Father John Gavin or one of the priests that we talked to said that you're like, man, I wish I would have been able to write that down when he said that. Well, you can go back to the podcast, and then you could pause it long enough for you to write down the whole thought or that whole saint quote or the whole passage from Scripture that you're like, man, I need to put that verse in my little journal. At any rate, you can go do that at sunrisemorningshow.com. Get the app, and you can even get some Mystic Monk coffee there. Seasons are about to shift. Weather's about to change. You might need to change up your coffee game. If you get it through the Mystic Monks at sunrisemorningshow.com, we get a cut, the monks get a cut, and you get good coffee. sunrisemorningshow.com. 1:30. Here's Anna with news.
Good morning. More than 1 million people attended Mass celebrated by Pope Leo to mark the close of the Jubilee of Youth yesterday. The closing Mass in Rome marked the end of a week-long event attended by young faithful from more than 140 countries, according to the Vatican. The Pope made a dramatic entry to an open-air prayer vigil attended by hundreds of thousands of young Catholics the night before when he arrived by helicopter and then made his way through the crowd in the Pope-mobile. Yesterday at Mass, in his homily, the Holy Father urged the young people to aspire to great things, to holiness wherever you are, and to not settle for less. Reflecting on the readings, he said, quote, "Buying, hoarding, and consuming are not enough. We need to lift our eyes, to look upwards to the things that are above, to realize that everything in the world has meaning only insofar as it serves to unite us to God and to our brothers and sisters in charity, helping us to grow in compassion, kindness, humility, meekness, and patience, forgiveness and peace, all in imitation of Christ. And in this way, you will grow in an ever deeper understanding of what it means that hope does not disappoint, because, he said, the love of God has been poured into our hearts through the Holy Spirit who has been given to us." End quote. During his Angelus address yesterday, the Holy Father lifted up young people in war-torn areas around the world. From Vatican Radio, Thaddeus Jones reports.
In communion with Christ, our peace and hope for the world, we are closer than ever to young people who suffer the most serious evils, which are caused by other human beings. We are with the young people of Gaza. We are with the young people of Ukraine, with those of every land bloodied by war. My young brothers and sisters, you are the sign that a different world is possible, a world of fraternity and friendship, where conflicts are not resolved with weapons, but with dialogue.
The Pope's words came just before leading the Angelus prayer as he offered concluding greetings to the over 1 million pilgrims gathered for the Sunday morning outdoor Mass. He took the opportunity to invite everyone to express their immense gratitude to God for the gift of these days of their Jubilee. Finally, the Pope recalled that following this Jubilee pilgrimage of hope in Rome, the next destination on the horizon will be Asia, when the Pope will join them to celebrate World Youth Day in Seoul, Korea, from the 3rd to the 8th of August, 2027. He said, "May we continue to dream and hope together in view of the next meeting in Seoul." I'm Thaddeus Jones.
Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu is pushing for what he called a military solution to free the remaining hostages being held by Hamas. More from Mark Mayfield.
ABC News, citing an Israeli official, said that Netanyahu is looking at the option as he hasn't been able to find a diplomatic solution to the ongoing hostage crisis. It is believed there are roughly 20 living hostages still being held by Hamas. I'm Mark Mayfield.
President Trump says that nuclear submarines are, quote, in the region of Russia. Trump made the comments yesterday, just 2 days after saying the U.S. was positioning 2 nuclear submarines close to Russia. The decision was made to place them in what were described as appropriate regions after highly provocative statements from former Russian President Dmitry Medvedev. Trump on Thursday had issued a warning to Medvedev, telling him to watch his words after he had criticized the president's foreign policy. Thousands of Boeing workers are on strike. Michael Kastner reports.
Members of the Machinists and Aerospace Workers Union are on strike at 3 Boeing facilities in the St. Louis area following failed negotiations over a new contract. About 3,500 union workers voted on Sunday to reject the company's final offer before the strike went into effect at midnight. Neither side has said when talks will resume. I'm Michael Kastner.
345 Park Avenue's lobby will reopen to tenants this morning following last week's mass shooting there that left 4 people dead. The NFL says its employees will remain remote throughout the week. That's the news. It's 35 past.
The Sunrise Morning Show.
'Tis the season for iced tea. If you're looking for some unique flavors to enjoy, the Carmelite Monks of Wyoming have a number of options, including lemongrass mint, ginger orange, and blossoming jasmine.
Go check them out through our link to Mystic Monk Coffee at sonrisemorningshow.com. And when you make a purchase, we earn a commission.
While you're at our site, pick up a mug or etched travel mug, which are available in our online store.
Get your mugs and link to Mystic Monk Coffee for tea at sonrisemorningshow.com.
Business owners are starting to think outside the box to find new customers. You can reach millions of engaged Catholic listeners by underwriting the Sunrise Morning Show. Each weekday morning, listeners across the U.S. and around the globe can hear your message for your business, ministry, or nonprofit on the Sunrise Morning Show. To find out how it works, email me, Leah at sacredheartradio.com. That's Leah at sacredheartradio.com.
Hello, this is Father Mark Watkins, pastor of St. Lawrence. The St. Monica Sodality Prayer for Fallen Away Catholics. Eternal and merciful Father, I give you thanks for the gift of your divine Son who suffered, died, and rose for all mankind. You gave St. Monica a spirit of selfless love manifested in her constant prayer for the conversion of her son Augustine. Inspired by boundless confidence in your power to move hearts, I pray the grace to imitate her constancy in my heart for those who no longer share in the intimate life of your Catholic family. Grant through my prayer that they may be open to the promptings of your Holy Spirit and return to loving union with your Church. Grant that also my prayer be ever hopeful and that I may never judge another, for you alone can read hearts. I ask this through Christ our Lord. Amen.
Very happy to welcome back to the Sunrise Morning Show, Father Philip Larray from Humanity 2.0. Good morning, Father.
And I'm even happier to be back. Good to talk with you again, Annie.
Thank you so much, Father. So in a recent conversation here on the morning show, you mentioned this MIT study on the effects that ChatGPT might have on our brains. And I want to hear more about this. So before we get to the actual findings, can you tell us first about how MIT scientists conducted this study?
There were 2 limitations to the study, Annie. The first limitation was the number of people that they interviewed. It's less than 100. So your cross-section is pretty low. Now, these were carefully selected people. And so the MIT expert said that justifies the low number because they were selected previously, and it's a cross-section of the people in higher education, et cetera. The second limitation is that it's self-reporting. So that means that the people themselves in the study reported back to the ones conducting the research. Now, what is fascinating about this? You mentioned ChatGPT. Well, let's not blame ChatGPT for
that's
all
a
of
good
our.
point. I was just going by all of the headlines. Is ChatGPT making us dumber? That was what many of the headlines
was the headline.
were.
Yeah. And to be honest, because the co-founder of ChatGPT is Sam Altman, and I think he's a good person. The study talked about LLMs, which are large language models. So it includes everybody: Anthropic, Gemini, all the AI platforms that we know about. But of course, OpenAI's ChatGPT is the most famous. The conclusion, as you know, is that yes, the cognitive results of people continually using AI platforms in order. Well, the specific question was, do you use AI to write your essays? And the ones that said yes performed very poorly on cognitive skills levels. Now, if you talk to any professor at the universities, they will tell you that's exactly the case. It's like, you discovered hot water. But what's interesting is that now the students know, and and I'm on, as you know, I'm on the steering committee for AI at Boston College, and I suggest to the professors. I think I mentioned this to you in another conversation. Assume that the students are on your side. Assume that they want to learn. And some of the professors looked at me at a meeting saying, we've never heard that before. Well, no, that's not true, because Jesuit training is based on the fact that students are genuinely interested in learning, and it's the job of the professor to help them do that. So, many of the students say, oh, yeah, I used to use ChatGPT. I don't do it anymore because I wasn't learning anything. Isn't that amazing? Doesn't that warm your heart?
It does. It does, because I thought it was really interesting as I was reading a little bit about this study that when asked to, there were groups. There was one that was only using ChatGPT to write essays. There was one that was allowed, a group that was allowed the use of search engines to aid them in their essay writing. And then there was a group that was only allowed to use their own brain power. And when
which is the way you and I went through school.
Exactly, I know, right? So the AI only group, when asked to redo the essay that they wrote, or quote unquote wrote, was not able to recall much of what they had written. Now, what this tells me, Father, is, regardless of the whole neuron stuff involved potentially with this, there's this thing called laziness. And laziness is a huge temptation, especially when you have an easy way to complete an undesirable task but still want to get a good grade.
Yeah, you're 100% correct, Annie. And that's why, and that's the temptation. But I talk to a lot of students, and at the end of 1 year or 2 years, they say, "What have I learned?" And it's practically nil. And they're like, "I'm going to change my strategy. I'm not going to use an AI anymore."
That's so
Plus,
good.
Annie, you have to remember, and your job is probably not at risk for an AI, but you never know. I mean, a lot of journalists are, they're nervous. And I tell my students, if you spend your formative years farming off your jobs to an AI, when you go and look for a job, the employer is going to say, what do you bring to the table that an AI doesn't? And if all you've been doing is using AI, you're not going to bring anything more than than what the AI can do. And the employer is going to say, well, then why should I hire you and not an AI? A friend of mine sent me, and if you want, I can forward it to you. She sent me a picture at a bus stop in San Francisco, which says, "Don't hire humans." Now, this may sound like a science fiction movie, but Annie, this is happening. Yeah. You have different companies that are supporting the idea, "Don't hire humans," and that's scary.
It is. And what's even scarier for me, Father, is this idea of the path of least resistance when it comes to the context that we're talking about today, like writing essays. the path of least resistance can easily lead to a loss of creativity because you're just not exercising that part of your brain, that ability that we have. And I mean, I don't want to make too much of this, Father, but I feel like there are some real implications here. Isn't creativity a participation in the mind of God?
Well, sure, of course it is. Aquinas talks about that, but it's also what makes us different than machines. And so you're absolutely right. The less we exercise our brain, the less we're going to be able to do that which is a part of our human nature. And so you could obviously talk about the mind of God, as Aquinas does in the first part of the Summa, but you could also talk about just simply the nature of the human being. And I think that resonates with many, many people.
For sure. Thank you so much, Father Philip Larray. And you can find Humanity 2.0 linked at sonrisemorningshow.com. Matt, do you ever use AI?
No. Well, I mean, unless you, count things like me asking my GPS to enter an address for something. Yeah. And then it sort of like artificially intelligences the directions. But even think about that, Anna Mitchell. Like, I remember when I used to play in bands and we'd go on tour, we'd have to get all the addresses in the mix and print everything out before we actually left on like a 8-day tour. And we had like this whole binder full of like where we were supposed to turn and stuff.
Oh, that's awesome.
And now, I've lost that ability.
Yeah.
When I'm the kind of person when someone tells me something like, "Well, head west on something," I'm like, "Don't use the word west on me."
Yeah,
Just tell me
left, right.
I've lost those things have atrophied. Anna Mitchell.
I've done a little, like every time that one of these conversations comes up, I've done a little bit of experimenting. Like there was one point where I had a conversation with Father Larray about whether AI can pray. And so, like, I went to the ChatGPT site to, like, ask it to write a prayer in line with the spirituality of St. Therese or St. Ignatius, or
to write a homily in the voice of Fulton Sheen.
There was one time I wish that I had the full article. I did an interview with Father Rob Jack a couple of weeks ago, and it was talking about AI and it taking over. And I was going to take, unfortunately, the article that he was using was behind a paywall, so I couldn't do it. But I was going to copy and paste the entire article and then tell it to write me 10 interview questions based on this article.
Oh my!
Just to see how it would do. And yeah, I did it for a different article, and it was okay. Yep. But it wasn't good enough for me to be like, oh, yeah, that's how I'm going to do my interview questions from
What a
now
contrast between the conversation we had after your news at the bottom of the hour and right before to talk to Dr. Kerwin over at the Center for Educational Leadership at Christendom and how they're trying to figure out how to form a human being to be a critical thinker.
Yeah.
And then, boom, you get Father Larray talking about how if you use too much AI, you will lose your ability to critically think.
Absolutely. I mean, it's
it underscores the need for good formation of students and teachers alike.
Absolutely. Well, and it's do I just want to get something done, or do I actually want to grow? And you know what? That's what I love about this job, is that this job encourages me to grow constantly. So if I start farming it off to AI, what's the point?
What's the point?
What's the point?
You're making
yourself
obsolete.
The only reason why I do this show is to make myself a better person.
I'm sure that's the only reason I do it. That and to talk to cool people.
Yeah, like Stephanie Mann, who's coming up next to talk about St. John Henry Newman.
I can't wait. When the news came out last week, I had my short list of all of our Sunrise Morning Show regulars that I wanted to talk to as soon as possible.
Yeah, Stephanie.
And haven't talked to Stephanie about this yet. This will be fun.
Yeah, exciting.
All right, 12 till. We're back right after this. Support is from Christendom College. Catholic schools need leaders who understand their mission. Christendom College's Center for Educational Philosophy and Leadership offers Master of Education and Doctor of Education degrees online that equip educators to lead with confidence, clarity, and an uncompromising commitment to the faith. If you're called to shape the future of Catholic education, the tools to succeed are at Christendom College. Christendom.edu/education. That's Christendom.edu/education.
Support for the Sunrise Morning Show is from Lord Teach Me to Pray. For over 500 years, the church-honored spiritual exercises of St. Ignatius of Loyola have formed many saints. This treasured way of personal prayer with God is now available to you for free. Order your free training manual at LordTeachMeToPray.com and bring Ignatian prayer to others. Lord Teach Me to Pray is approved by the USCCB. Order now or support the mission at LordTeachMeToPray.com.
Do you use a single brew coffee maker at your home or in your workplace? The Carmelite Monks of Wyoming have single-use coffee pods especially for you.
Go to the Mystic Monk Coffee site through our site, sunrisemorningshow.com, to browse the monk shot options. When you check out, we'll earn a commission.
And why not brew it straight into a Sunrise Morning Show mug or travel mug? You can find those in our online store.
Buy a mug and link for some monk shots for your Keurig at sonrisemorningshow.com.
The EWTN radio listener comment line is open right now for you. If you've got a question or comment about what you hear on EWTN radio, we'd love to hear it. Call 205-795-5773. We'd also like to know how our programming has impacted your life or the life of someone you know. That number again, 205-795-5773. And thank you for listening to EWTN radio.
Back with us now on the Sunrise Morning Show is Stephanie Mann from supremacyandsurvival.blogspot.com. Good morning, Stephanie.
Good morning, Anna.
I got to ask first for your reaction to the news that came out that St. John Henry Newman will be declared the newest doctor of the church. How did you react?
Of course. I was really excited, obviously really excited. You know, I kind of knew that, I knew our bishops in the United States had concurred with the bishops of England in presenting the argument that he should be named a doctor of the church. So it was just stunning that it came, as usual, kind of like remember the event when Pope Benedict XVI resigned, it comes at 5:30 in the morning, then you scramble and think, what do I do?
Yes, I know. I almost told Paul to call you and get you on the line at, like 6:45 a.m. Eastern time just to get your reaction to the news. But I decided, I was like, Stephanie will be on Monday. I'll give her some time to really think about it. But the timing really is great here because we've been using our segments in 2025 to mark significant anniversaries this year. And this news gives us the excuse to talk about the 135th anniversary of the death of Cardinal Newman. Not that we really needed an excuse to talk about this, but he died
it was in the plan.
Exactly. He died on August 11th, 1890. And his death made the news, and clearly the news recognized that the world had just lost a holy man.
Yes, and particularly when you look at the English media and the mainstream media, if you could call it that. I don't know what it was, what other stream of media there was in the 19th century. But you look at like the Times of London, the comments that they made. I mean, even though he had defected from the established church in England, they still recognized his greatness, not just his literary greatness, but his greatness as a person and as a man and as a holy man. And one of the lines that's best from the Times of London's obituary from him said that even if Rome wouldn't canonize him, he will be canonized in the thoughts of pious people of many creeds in England.
Wow! Because
the saint and poet in him will survive, and so many of the news stories also mentioned "Lead, Kindly Light," as a great poem a hymn and a poem that was already a classic. So it's a classic in his own day, and it's a classic today. I mean, so often in the Magnificat, they'll have "Lead, Kindly Light" as an opening hymn to be chanted or at least prayed out loud, because it is poetry. It should be. So, it was an incredible. He received so many incredible tributes from the secular media and from, of course, Catholic media too, but particularly the secular media. It's incredible because newmanreader.org has a collection of all these tributes to him and the obituaries, and they're just beautiful.
Yeah, I bet it was probably hard to pick just a couple
Yes.
of them to put in
Yeah.
your blog post on this. Who preached
Right.
his funeral?
That's what's interesting is Cardinal Manning preached his funeral, and they had been at loggerheads often about what the kind of newly revived Catholic Church in England should be like, whether it should reach out, which was Newman's model, reach out to, particularly to the laity and to the world, and reach out through education, through a university education, as he wanted to do at the university in Ireland, and Manning's view to kind of not just focus in, but kind of shore up all that they needed to, all the foundations that they needed to revive. And yet he came and he preached, and he said that this was, again, this the natural and supernatural gifts that Newman had, and that were hidden in his humility, and the joy of all he called him to the highest dignity next to his own when Pope Leo the 13th made him a cardinal. So he really looked at this, saying that he was a greatest of our people, a confessor for the faith, a great teacher of men, a preacher of justice, of piety, and compassion.
Wow.
So it was a beautiful tribute, but it's kind of ironic that someone who had disagreed with him so much could still see, and I guess it's good, that someone who disagreed with him so much could still see the beauty and the greatness of his life and the contributions he made.
Well, I don't know if you know this.
Yeah.
Do you know if Newman asked Cardinal Manning to preach his funeral, or if that was just a decision that was made after he died?
I think it was, I don't think we know. I don't, well, of course, Newman was weak and he was suffering from pneumonia, but I don't think that I've read anything that indicates that he had planned his funeral or done anything like that. Because as a cardinal and in the hierarchy, he knew there would probably there's kind of an established pattern of what would occur, and how as an oratorian he would be, prepared for his funeral, would be prepared to be celebrated in Birmingham and in the midst of the oratory. And yet, yes, there would obviously be dozens of bishops there, and so he knew that there would be that great kind of funeral for him.
Absolutely. So now here we are, 135 years later, celebrating not only his sanctity, but the importance of his teaching, his articulation of the faith. You mentioned Lead, Kindly Light, this articulation that he had that's so beautiful, and really a testament to the truth, the beauty, and the goodness of the Catholic faith.
Yes, it's very true. Yes, it's a good summary. Thank you. Better than ChatGPT could ever do.
Thanks, Stephanie. St. John Henry Newman, pray for us. Amen. We've been talking to Stephanie Mann. She's got a great piece over at Supremacy and Survival, linked at sunrisemorningshow.com. Stephanie, thank you.
Thank you. Talk to you next week.
Sounds good. I look forward to it. All right, that'll do it for this national edition of the Sunrise Morning Show. God bless you and keep you and grant you his peace.